stand up if you don't. Yeah, I feel like, sometimes you get the presentation from people, and other people like, I
Did you click it off? There you
There we
go.
go. Okay. Push the button up. Okay, thanks guys. Yeah, it's funny because sometimes you have the participation and it's like people who kind of want to raise their hands even if they don't, and then they just don't. So like the whole stand up thing, it's good because it gets you moving and like keeps you engaged, but then again, the participation is not always there. So I would say you guys got like a C minus, maybe a minus in participation, but maybe we'll try a little bit better next time. As Rebecca mentioned, I'm doing Edmonton market updates. It's actually kind of funny because I was like, oh man, I think I finished pretty much 3/4 of the city. And then I went through the map and I'm like, whoa, I actually only did about 1/4 of the areas of the city. And it's huge because we actually like sectioned out whole districts, like Mill Woods. People thought that was a community. That's a giant district. There's like, 15 communities within just Mill Woods. So anyways, very interesting. We're about 3/4 of the way through it, lots of information. So this is an Edmonton investor map. So if you guys haven't seen this presentation, this is a fantastic resource for anybody who's not from Edmonton, not familiar with the city, people from online. This is just a fantastic resource. Essentially what it is, Jasmine, if you can go next slide. Essentially what it is basically just a hub for anybody to click on a city. So if you go to our website, mogulrg.com, under Mogul Mastermind, and then there's a tab for resources, and this is up there. It's a pretty interactive map. You can click on a specific section. So here we clicked on the south portion of Edmonton. It gives you a video, so it links it to our YouTube channel. That's kind of the update that we're doing here, and then eventually we're going to update this map with the new content. Click on that section. It also shows the area, talks about the demographic, typical pricing type, key drivers for that location, and the types of investment properties that you could be expecting in that area. So super cool. As Rebecca hinted, I gave away the big reveal tonight. We're talking about the Westmount and Glenora area. So does anybody know this picture, what this is? Yes, it is a fountain. Thank you. Anybody else? A little bit more specific. I don't have a book, but I'll give you some high fives. Yes, no. Yeah. It starts with A. Ooh, get that guy a cookie, okay? Awesome. Yeah, this is the Alexander Circle, kind of iconic. People know it. It's has some historic relevance. Very cool. People know about it because it is in the Glenora neighborhood. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening in Glenora and the Westmount area. So just for a high level to look at the area. So basically, Westmount and Glenora, we have on the west side, 142nd Street. We're going to go all the way past 124th Street, essentially to pretty much the Brewery District. And then it goes to the River Valley and then all the way to 111th Avenue. So we have a couple areas in this district that we're going to call Westmount/Glenora. We have Glenora in this far left quadrant at the bottom. Then we have North Glenora, obviously north. And then the whole right-hand section to the east is the Westmount neighborhood. So Westmount is quite a bit larger than Glenora and North Glenora. So let's talk about tenant profile. Obviously, it's a very large district. So we're gonna have a huge variety of different types of people in this area. Generally, when you're looking at the types of property, we'll usually push a different type of demographic into that specific type of property. So usually your lower middle income is going to be kind of the walk-ups all the way to condos and some low-rise townhouse style type property. And then from there, we have anywhere from middle to very, very high income. We have a very huge diversity when it comes to this specific area. Like I mentioned, diverse demographic. We have very like professionals, entrepreneurs, to people who are on social income and housing and things like that. So very, very diverse. And then also low income, long-term tenants. We have students because of the proximity to the university and to the QN, very transit oriented. Young professionals, executives, white collars, and then some short-term type of properties available as well. So you can really just tune in the type of investments that you want to do based on the tenant profile that you want to be working with. So what are the key drivers for the area? So we talk a lot about the LRT line. There's a couple new ones coming into Edmonton, as most of you know. We had a huge milestone here in Edmonton. It feels like, I mean, I don't even know how long it's been, but we've talked about the Valley Line LRT. It's been going on for a very long time. And this month, November 4th, it opened up. And I heard that there's some crazy people who got up at 5 in the morning to take the iconic, call it ride on the first LRT. But I don't know, has anyone heard, has cars hit it yet? Because I know that was a big problem with the line. Serious question though, has there been any problems? I haven't really heard. No? Everyone should your head, so it's been good? Okay, good. So when we're breaking up the LRT line, it comes in two sections on the Valley Line. So the Valley Line is the south portion, essentially from the bottom of Mill Woods, so call it 23rd Avenue, Mill Woods Town Center Mall, and that goes all the way up into the downtown area. And then what we call the west portion is pretty much from the downtown core, and then that's going to go all the way west until we hit Lewis Estates, crossing the heading. And the south portion, that was a long time coming. And now you're starting to see a lot of the construction, all the underground stuff that's happening with the LRT line. So people have been focusing on investing close to those areas. Westmount Lenora, North Lenora is going to be right in that zone. So there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of things that you're going to be seeing in those areas. So for the key drivers, you're going to be looking for areas close. You don't want to necessarily be right on that line where you're looking at it or they're taking up part of the sidewalk where your investment sits, but it's somewhere to look at because you want to be in that proximity where we talked about before, kind of in that 800-meter radius zone. Next is City Council for density. We talked about this last Mogul Mastermind. Alco came up here. We had a bunch of other speakers talking a lot about the push for density. So if you guys haven't seen the news, don't know what's happening, essentially Edmonton is pushing for that 15-minute city. They're really, really pushing for it. So they've taken out a lot of the zoning, some of the mature neighborhood overlays, and they're really pushing for density. So now you can put 8 plexes on an interior lot, and more things are coming. They're changing the height restrictions. Lots of things that are coming down the pipe. That's going to be coming January 1st of this year. It's already been passed. So the things are happening. And areas where it's going to be super impactful are going to be places in the core. And I think Westmount and Glenora is going to have a lot of things happening with that density. I think you're probably going to see a little bit of pushback from the community leagues. Everybody wants, people know that we need housing, but most people don't want it in their backyards, especially if you're building a different type of property for a specific reason. Next is multiple towers. So there's a lot of things happening in the area. Again, we're starting to see builders. We're going to talk about a couple of the ones that we are seeing come up. But anytime that you see big developments happening in your area, it is a good thing for investors, because it is a good thing when you start to see people migrating to a specific area. It brings people, it brings businesses. It just stimulates the environment, stimulates everything going on. So I like to follow some of the big players, see what they're doing, and be in those areas because they're going to drive the traffic. And if they're not necessarily targeting the right tenant profile that is going to cater to their building, maybe you can get some of the offshoots that come from those bigger developers. And last but not least is walk score. So it's actually kind of funny. We used to be in the brewery districts. I used to walk and run in the Glenora area, and I thought it was super walkable. But apparently, if you Google the walk score, it's not actually that walkable. So I would change this to walk score to more like transit oriented, because that LRT line is going to go right through Stony Plain Road, which is essentially breaking between the Westmount, Glenora and North Glenora, and then going right through the heart of Westmount. So talking about your type of properties, so executive rentals. So Carlos did a fantastic presentation with our team, just to kind of give us a little bit more information on how you look at Airbnbs, what are the things that you focus on. And location is huge, but also the size of the property, tenant profile, who you're really targeting, how long are they going to stay at your property. And I think on the executive rental side, if these people are coming into downtown, most often they don't want to necessarily be in the heart of downtown. They just want to be in the outskirts so that they can, take advantage of a quicker commute, but not necessarily have all the sounds and smells and fun things that come with being right in the downtown core. So I think the executive rental side is going to be fantastic for this. Multifamily condos, there's not going to be a ton right in the core, but generally if you're looking at the main corridors, some of the bigger areas, and then specifically on 124th Street, I think for multifamily buildings, that's going to be a really hot spot, because we see a ton of things happening on 124th Street. It's won awards across Canada about the vibrancy and things happening with it. And it's starting to push a little bit north. I know between like the intersection of like 124th and 118th, 118th does definitely gets a bad rap. But there's a lot of options and things and offshoots between Westmount and Inglewood, right in between 111th, 118th, and then if you can find something even called south of 111th, I think that would be a good opportunity to take a look at. Short to medium term rentals. Again, this is going back on the Airbnb conversation. Being in that hotspot, being in that zone is going to be super impactful. Redevelopment land. We touched on it briefly in that last slide. There's a lot of things happening in the areas. So if you're taking advantage of a property that doesn't need to be torn down right now, it's great. In our building, what we've done is we purchased a multifamily building to be able to, run it as is for, hopefully as long as we can, but have the option of redeveloping in the future with a good size, good piece of land. So I think in these zones, if you can find something with a little extra land, it's not going to hurt you in the future. So when we're talking about hotspots, I mentioned the 124th Street corridor area. So that's right on that tip there. Couple other, so if you see where Stony Plain is, you see the Colombian Coffee Bar and Roastery. Just down from that, you have that little green circle of the cross in the middle. So that's the Alexander Crescent. That's where the fountain, that first picture was. A couple iconic streets in there. There's Wellington Crescent, St. George Crescent. Some of those houses are, $1.5, $2 million for literally a full renovation. Very hard to find properties in there. They don't generally hit the market. They go pretty quick. So if you're looking for areas, that's going to be very expensive, but you can find some targets in and around that area. Then I would say if you're looking, North Glenora is going to have some of the gentrification and upscale stuff that you're starting to see from Glenora. So price points are a lot less than Glenora, and in some areas of Westmount as well. Sometimes what happens is if a realtor is looking at comparables for a specific property, so if you're saying, hey, Mr. Agent, I'm looking for comps, I'm looking to do a property in Westmount, can you send me over some comps? You have to be very, very careful, because they might send you comps in Westmount, but there's a huge change between the north and the south part of Westmount. And that corridor is 107th Avenue. So you have to really make sure that if you're looking at comps that are south of West or 107th, if you're really trying to dial in the specifics of that area. So again, for me, the hotspots are in kind of the closer to 124th Street or getting a little bit closer to that South Ocean. So here's a new development happening. So this is by Edgar Developments, about a $30 million project. Again, being in and around the zones of this, so this is going to be a multi-use. So apartments, and then you have the kind of retail, commercial at the bottom. So lots of options in there. Another project they have coming up is Glenora Apartments, this building A. I think this is going to be coming in 2 sections. So again, developers, big companies are putting in, tens of millions of dollars of development in these areas. So take a look at these areas. Big players are doing it. There's a reason that they are. So when we're talking about the key locations, so multifamily is one great option. And like I mentioned, along the corridor, so you have, so these are basically all the options that I saw on the MLS, just to give you kind of a map and a feature of where these buildings are located. This was everything in that west, north, area, and they're really along the main corridors. Everything kind of in between that is pretty much residential or more residential properties. So lots of options, and you don't see a lot of them come up on market. Usually they trade off. Short to medium term rentals. So it's funny because when we had Carlos come in and talk about it, he showed us one of his first Airbnb properties that he had, probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. And the changes of the way you advertise the properties are completely different. Before you could just do your typical, nice stainless steel appliances, just have it nice and clean. Now I feel like you have to go completely like over the top with themes and all like the staging, different colors and all these crazy things. And so like here that you're starting to see that. So short-term rentals, be a little bit different in what you're putting forward. Lots of options with the short-term rental side. So this is an executive rental. Like I mentioned, south of 107th Ave. So this is some things that builders are putting out. So this is a suited house. So you'd have kind of an executive style rental on the main floor. You'd put a basement suite in the bottom, have that as a medium term or even a long-term rental, or both do Airbnbs on that one. Price point on this one, about $850. That's what the asking price is. Obviously, if this was north of 107th, there'd be a big price adjustment there. And redevelopment. So 54 by 140, purchase price 575, RF1 zoning. RF1 zoning is going to go away come January 1st. This is a corner lot. This is something that you can pick up and take a look at rezoning. But a house like this, if you're looking at, and I think what we've seen a lot of builders do, or people who are building those fourplexes, they're going into some of the less desirable areas or areas where it's cheaper. So I would question the numbers, look at some other areas too. Get outside of the zone, look at Glenora, look at Westmount, look at some of the more expensive areas. You might have to pay a bit more for the land, but your rental numbers will increase, your tenant profile will change, and you should be able to get that back on your appraisal amount. So even though it might be a little bit more expensive at the beginning, change that tenant profile, change that rental amount, and you'll be able to maybe get a little bit of a better product. So conclusion, I think Westmount Glenora is still going to be one of the top areas in the city for a very, very long time. I think, unless you're right in that heart, right in that zone, we haven't seen a crazy increase in prices. I think it's nice and steady. I do think we'll start to see that come up as more projects go in, development increases. So I still think it's going to be great. The key drivers, like I mentioned, LRT, transit oriented, a lot of development happening. So I think that there's opportunity for people to get in at a bunch of different price point zones and a potential to create a unique rental niche. So from anything from a walk-up apartment building to a cheaper condo to a high-end executive Airbnb, you have a lot of options and a lot of budgets. So that's it for me. Hopefully you got something away from that.